Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Morgan Beard. Morgan Beard has dedicated her life to using creativity to heal and empower. Managing depression and anxiety since the age of 13 made personal development non-negotiable. She received her BA in Visual and Media Studies from Duke University in 2012 and her MPS in art therapy from the School of Visual Arts in New York City in 2017. As a therapist, an art therapist in New York, Morgan worked in public elementary school, an adult inpatient psychiatric unit, and a 183-bed nursing home. Her life came to a screeching halt after burning out in pursuit of licensure and entering another major depressive episode. Focused for the first time on her own happiness, Morgan moved across the country and started over in Los Angeles. She began building her life coaching business, working with individuals to create holistically fulfilling lives and families to increase communication and harmony. This gave her the confidence to embrace her earliest passion for singing and make music to help people move. Morgan is currently working on her debut pop EP, Elemental, set to release in 2022. Today, we learned how to overthrow unworthiness and rewrite the not good enough script that keeps playing you small, how to overcome the hidden internal obstacles that keep you stuck in the same patterns and keep you from meeting your goals, how to ignite your creativity to de-stress and overcome depression, how to connect with your inner wisdom to answer any question, how to get out of your head and stop overthinking and second guessing yourself, how to get to the root emotion of any sadness, fear, guilt, anger, and work through it so you're the one steering the ship, and how to embrace yourself completely so that you feel authentic in your body. We also talked about what art therapy is and different forms and how that can bring your emotions to the surface, how to get past fear and anxiety and go after what we want, and how to figure out what we want. And last but not least, we talked about overcoming negative thoughts and behavior patterns. Today was so good. And we even gave you a little bit of homework at the end for some self-discovery. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode with the one, the only Morgan Beard. I'm excited to welcome Morgan Beard, to the Sisterhood of Sweat today.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda.
Yeah, we were starting our conversation before the conversation, so I feel like this is going to be good. What in the world, like, how did you get into the space of art therapy?
Yeah. I was living in New York and I was at my first job out of college working for a consultant within the independent film world. And it was sort of one iteration of what I knew I wanted to do, which was be creative and help people. But it was became very apparent that that was not actually the modality that I wanted to use to do that. I wanted something that was like a way deeper way of connecting with people and more individual based. I wanted to really like rock individual people's worlds, not promote filmmakers' films on Facebook and, the like. Not to distill my job down to totally that, but I just knew I was in the complete wrong realm. Um, and it kind of just occurred to me that art therapy was a thing. I'd been in therapy myself for years, and thought about could I be a therapist, but I felt like that didn't kind of touch all of me. It didn't bring my creativity or my art to the table, which was something that I wanted to do. A skill that I thought this has to be useful in some capacity. I've got it, right? Um, so art therapy was a thing, psychotherapy plus the creative process. And I got really excited about it. I immediately started researching grad programs in New York, where I was living at the time, and went to the School of Visual Arts and got my master's in it. And that education was just like unbelievable. Even though I am not an art therapist anymore, I I mean, it helped me to understand people at such a deep level, to understand our emotions and how they show up, to understand how to use self-expression as a point of understanding ourselves, and speaking that kind of unconscious language that art tends to capture. And so that really became kind of the backbone of what I do now as a creative life coach, in seeing people through that lens. And then I work with them in a much different way than I did as an art therapist. But I mean, it just about blew my mind in every dimension and was a huge part of getting me to where I am now.
Now, when I think of art therapy, knowing nothing about it whatsoever, I think and I would imagine myself painting and maybe using some oil paint, some watercolor or
Yep.
something, and just
Yep.
brushing and different colors and just going with whatever emotions I was feeling. And then I think I would see, after I've done all that, I might be able to see the feelings on the page.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a perfect example. And part of what an art therapist does is curates the materials that they have someone use specific to the goals they want to achieve, how they're presenting. Um, there's sort of this spectrum of media that are more controlled and rigid and precise, like a pencil and paper, all the way through to, like, let's say, gloppy clay, which is much more fluid and moldable, and it's in your hands and it's more organic feeling. And an art therapist is choosing, okay, based on where this client wants to go, what medium do I even choose? And then what structure do I put on the project that I have them do, such that they're working through a task that kind of parallels what they're working on? So what you named is a perfect example. And that would give you a greater understanding, or sort of a visual representation, of your emotions, of your insides, which every art piece is a self-portrait in a way. So it's dead on.
It's really cool. I love the whole concept of art therapy.
Yeah.
And I think not enough people value art the way that it should be valued, and see that connection of it being this part of us that we're feeling, and we're putting it onto either canvas, or like you said, a sculpture or some type of art. um how can we get to the, like I said, like let's say I'm painting, I feel like today I would be painting uh a stormy kind of ocean. How do we get to the root cause, or the root of the emotion
Hmm.
that we're maybe perhaps painting or sculpting? Sadness, fear, guilt, anger. And
Yeah.
learn to work with that emotion, so that we're the ones steering the ship, and maybe identifying with the emotions we're carrying.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the first part. And like you said, so if you sat down with a blank piece of paper and no conscious idea what was going to come out, but today you said you might paint a stormy ocean, that would give you a pretty strong clue of the emotional realm that you're in. And you might not have had quite as clear of an idea going into sitting down to do that. But now you have this art effect. Well, I didn't know I was going to be that punny. You have this artifact now that shows you, okay, these are the dimensions of my emotions. This is how big I feel. This is how small I feel. These are the colors I feel. And that can help you tap in, um, using that sort of subconscious intuitive knowledge that you have. And that subconscious intuitive knowledge that you have, that is also the vehicle to get to the root of something. And as you said, the first thing you do is just identifying, like, what the heck is this storm or cocktail of emotions that I'm feeling, right? um, and getting it out of yourself and onto a piece of paper or into a journal or speaking it, naming it to someone else allows you to take this more objective perspective on it. Like you're not just experiencing it now as something internal. You can look at it and you can notice and you can be more of an observer, more of a sort of curious scientist that's trying to name a new phenomenon. um, and that piece is what we're going for with when we talk about mindfulness, is having that observer vantage point to our own stuff that isn't I'm drowning in it, like I'm in the storm, I'm in the sea trying to just stay alive, right? You're looking at a piece of paper and you're going, whoa, that was inside of me, that's how I feel. So once you can occupy that framework or that role of I'm watching this thing versus I am this thing or I'm lost in this thing, then you can really understand from us, you can sort of recruit your logical brain. You can also recruit what you notice in your body. Like, oh, now that I look at this painting I made of a stormy sea, I feel a heaviness in my heart, or I feel a frenetic energy in my head. And again, you're just naming observably what's going on with you versus being lost in it. And that's the space mentally and emotionally where you can actually kind of achieve a shift if you're able to accept that this phenomenon or this weather is moving through you.
And for those of you that are saying you only draw stick figures, it wouldn't matter. You could still do art therapy because it's more about the colors, the tonality, and then like the brush strokes and all of the emotion versus being able to truly draw like I can't look at you, Morgan, today and recreate you. And I probably could. I'm good at copying, but I'm just saying, like, you don't have to be a brilliant artist to be able to benefit from doing the art therapy, right?
Right. And the thing too is it's not we say this a lot, or we did, you know, back when I primarily identified as an art therapist, would say this a lot, but it's not about the product. It's not about the end product. It's about the process. So at every layer of how someone approaches an activity, creative or not, it says something about them. So if someone is coming in with this resistance of, oh God, I'm self-conscious, I can only draw a stick figure, maybe that's the starting point where
Ooh,
where
I
you
love that.
you know,
Okay.
like, okay, so that's where the block is. That's where the work is for this person in their internal conception of having to be good enough to even step up to the starting line.
Okay. So how do we overthrow the unworthiness, rewrite the not good enough script? Because I
Mhm.
think so many of us would relate to the not feeling good enough to start, like not feeling like you're worthy of canvas and being an artist and painting something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to say to this is something that even when I was an art therapist and I knew intellectually the value of taking out a piece of paper and just putting something down, just allowing yourself, really relaxing your own, you know, sort of idea of whatever it is that's stopping you, whatever your mind is telling you that's stopping you. Like I would still, we were asked to do process art. So we were making art as well as art therapists to see, well, how do I feel with this client or whatever. And I would still have the thought when I would pick the piece of paper up and go, oh, is it really worth like using a piece of paper on this? Or like what, you know, whatever BS your mind wants to tell you. And so I think it's important to know that it's not about getting to a place where I never have that thought. That thought doesn't enter my mind at all. But it's, again, stepping back into that observer role of, this thought is coming up. This unworthiness is coming up. And what am I going to do next? You know, am I going to choose to listen to it and stay in that vibration of like, I'm too afraid to put even a dot down? Or am I going to dance with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's because I think so many of us would be like, if we might feel like we have to have something worthy of
Mhm.
of putting down on paper, and that we need to be able to understand how to make art, and that's missing like the whole point of the exercise. Aren't all of us capable of some art?
Of course.
Yeah,
We are creative beings
yeah.
inherently. So if someone came to me and said, I'm not an artist in this fashion, I'd be like, all right, so I bet it'll take me about 2.5 minutes to find out where in your life you are an artist, where in your life you are creating something, you know? So again, it's that mental framework that maybe a lot of so many people have some story from when they were younger of some art teacher or a parent telling them that their art sucked in one way or another, and then they just buried that creative impulse, or they thought like, oh, because this person's definition of good enough art, they told me I didn't fit into it, now I have absolutely no claim to call myself an artist. And it's just total crap. It is total crap. We're all artists. We're all artists.
I love that. So how do we overcome the hidden internal obstacles that are keeping us stuck in this mindset, giving us the same kind of patterns in other areas? Because I
Yeah.
almost would guarantee if you felt like that about art, there's other things that you're afraid to start or do because you're afraid you're going to suck at them, or that you're not good enough or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and that prevents you from then taking that first step so that you could develop your talent.
Yeah. So I love that you brought up the way that experience can kind of expand to other domains to people's lives. Because one thing that I would say, in addition to the mindfulness that I spoke about earlier, of like one of the key things is continually striving to be in that compassionate observer role towards whatever crap comes up, towards whatever your mind serves, whatever anxious thought, worry, story, whatever, you name it. You can keep sort of zooming out and welcoming that into that compassionate container. And if you're feeling sort of overwhelmed by the prospect of that, like you're really stuck in judgment, you're really stuck in a sort of I'm less than, I can't do this, I'm afraid mindset, you can identify, I'm sure there is an area of life that you might not even notice because you're doing it so naturally and so easily, where you have overcome obstacles, right? Like there's something that you're doing so seamlessly that you don't recognize that maybe there was a point in your life where you did have to overcome a fear to do it. Or maybe you were just always naturally equipped with this skill and it was someone else's Kilimanjaro, you know? So you can recruit that sense of I can do this and ease, and maybe remember that you at one point overcame a sense of not being able to do it. Recruit that confidence to help you when you're trying to confront a fear about a new domain where there is uncertainty still about how is this going to go.
It's not going to go anywhere if you don't try it, right?
That's for
If
sure.
you don't even just at least get your feet wet. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so how do we ignite our creativity to de-stress? Like I think that the therapy with the painting would be kind of cool. Overcome depression and design our best lives. Like, so how are we going to ignite this creativity?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I would say here is find your small yeses. Like, if you're not used to running with your creative whims and saying yes to little playful tickles of impulses that you get throughout the day, like when I say that, maybe you don't even, nothing even occurs to you and you're like, what is she talking about? Tickles of inspiration, like what? You have to listen really close, because that means that your mind has clouded out, and maybe your schedule, maybe you're so busy you don't have the time or the space to think about, well, what am I going to do that is outside of just the structure that I already have in place in my life. So look for little things that just spark excitement or curiosity, maybe even things that spark jealousy or anger. Because sometimes when we notice we're jealous of someone else, that's our only way to access, oh, this is what I want for myself. And a lot of us are not used to owning what we want, identifying what we want. I started doing this practice with a friend where we would just name our desires. And I remember when I started, it was so difficult for me to even name something that I desired, because I was so out of touch with the feeling of desire.
I think a lot of people are. I think this is
Yeah.
probably going to hit home for a lot of people.
Yeah. So again, just like with the stick figure person, if you are looking at the idea of stating a desire like, well, I can't even do it because all I can draw is stick figures, metaphorically, start there. Start there. Just start to sit with the idea of desire. What does desire even mean to you? Is it something that you feel in your body? Like, is it a sensual kind of feeling? Is it something where when you see a certain color, you light up? Like, don't be afraid to ask yourself what might seem like the most basic questions. Don't let the mind talk you out of doing the small steps, because the smallest steps are what's going to get you down the road. A lot of times we look at something as, we get stuck in a black and white mindset where it's like you have to move a mountain, or why even start? But if you do it one grain of sand at a time, you're making progress. And the cool thing about personal growth is it's exponential. Once you start firing on one area, it starts impacting 3 areas, which impact 6 areas, which it grows exponentially. So don't buy into that voice that's saying like, it's too late, I'm too old, or I'll never get there, whatever there is. Let yourself play in the moment. Like, say yes to yourself in ways that you may have previously ascribed as like silly or not worth your time or whatever. That is crap. You are worth more than that.
Well, I think we might get into the role of doing things for others, people pleasing, going after goals that somebody else did that looked cool, but we're really realizing we're just like stuck in this pattern, or maybe we thought we wanted all this stuff, so we had to work hard to get it, and now we don't even know what we desire because we're just in this rat race.
Yeah.
So you have to almost pull back from everything that you know sometimes and that you are doing, to just sit with yourself and just ask yourself, what is it that I truly desire? And it could be the craziest stuff, but I think that the crazier the better. Like, what do you desire? What do you truly want in your heart of hearts? And then don't judge yourself for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And use your body, use your heart, use your gut as a compass or a thermometer for if something really connects to a desire for you. Like, I was just journaling yesterday and asking myself the question of like, what do I want? And I'm practiced at this, and it still took me a couple minutes to kind of get through the mind guessing at what I wanted to really get deeper into the heart of like, what did I feel? What lit me up? What was like, ooh, cozy. I just wanted to like snuggle into it. And that's once I could feel it in that way, that's when I knew, okay, this is really what I want versus my mind going, do I want this? Do I want this? Do I want this? So patience, I think, is one of the biggest things too. It's just like wade through your mind telling you all the things that this person wants you to do or you think you want to do because of XYZ. You'll know once you've gotten to like, this feels right in my heart. So don't give up until you get to that place of like, I can feel this. I don't need to keep asking and second guessing myself because I know it. It's in my body.
Yeah, I think like you have to almost reconnect with yourself. And now you're going to get this critic sitting on your shoulder about the time that you come up with these desires that sound kind of wacky and out there. You're going to get this critic sitting on your shoulder. Well, what do you want that for? That's not very practical, and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you silence that?
Okay. So when for most of my life, I thought the way to stop being depressed was to basically kill off this part of me that was depressed. Nope. Like if you are in this position where you're like, God, if I could only just totally silence or squash my inner critic, or I hate this part of me that does this, I would just be so much better off without them, blah, 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 blah. That is sort of a trap because it perpetuates you against parts of yourself. What's helped me the most, what has like moved the earth within me, is the times where I'm able to, even if it's for 30 seconds at a time, integrate all these parts of myself. Like give a warm, welcoming hug to the part of myself that's hurting the most, the depressed part, the inner critic part, that uber judgmental voice, because we can't just disown a part of ourselves and walk forward as a whole loving being. The work of actually quote unquote getting past it is learning to walk with it, like befriending it, welcoming it in, listening to it, all the things that if we're looking at ourselves as like a hurt child or something, you're not going to like slam the door on it. You're going to kneel in front of it. You're going to listen. You're going to hug it. You're going to comfort it, and that shifts it.
So basically embracing every part of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the emotions that result from that. And it's so hard. Like I can't undersell it. I have to undersell it because it is just so hard.
So how do you get out of your head? Because I know a lot of people will be in their head when they start thinking about what they actually really desire.
Yeah.
Then there's this other part of them that wants to stop them. And they're going to be in their head. And how do they get out of their head and into their body, and stop overthinking and second guessing themselves that what they really want to do is run bare butt naked through a waterfall or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for me, one of the quickest processes that I use is dancing.
Oh,
Honestly.
cool.
Yeah. Like I've started doing this practice in a group setting with other people called ecstatic dance, which, basically they play music and you just dance however you feel. It's not about how it looks. It's just about allowing energy to move through your body. And it took me a couple years to gain like a facility with that and to lose the layers of self-consciousness about it. But now I can put on a song and let the music flow through me and just kind of allow myself to move with it. And then eventually, it awakens something in me where I can either kind of like just get to a, wow, it feels good to move, or, oh, I didn't realize I had that anger in my hips that I was just starting to do this like a hip thrusting or whatever. But like it doesn't even need that layer of analysis. So I would say really just like put on a song that connects with the emotion that you're currently feeling. You don't have to put on like a happy song if you're feeling sad. You don't need to create a situation where the emotion you're currently in is wrong. Put on some music that maybe serves even as a bridge between the emotional state you're in and where you want to go, and let it kind of work its way through you. Like surrender to something outside of you. Give your mind permission to take a back seat and let it serve your body instead of vice versa.
So how can you embrace yourself so completely, like by, doing this with music, I guess would be a one tool, so that we could feel lighter and more comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
So we're kind of glowing from the inside out because we're really becoming kind of embracing ourselves, our authentic selves, and just like being who we truly are. So how do we embrace ourselves completely so that this can kind of happen?
Yeah. It's funny when people say like embrace yourself. Like you get this image of like I'm arms wide open, smiling and everything's good and I'm just woo. Um but like right, it's sort of ridiculous. Um because again it implies this like I can only embrace myself when I feel worthy of being embraced already, when I feel happy or charged or inspired or whatever. Then it's like, yes, come on in for this hug. You earned it. Woohoo. But the the hard work of embracing yourself is sitting with yourself when shit sucks. Like being your own shoulder to cry on. Like kind of I even imagine in my head, if I need to cry, putting up sort of a barrier between that small part of me that needs to cry and the voice that might have something else to say about it. So you kind of show up as your own best mother, like really knowing what you need in a moment and then giving yourself the space to get it, whatever it is. Like not valuing your joy over your sadness or your anger over your fear or whatever. Like whatever is flowing through you in any moment, that's the thing to focus on embracing. And it kind of requires you to set aside the goal of, like I said before, like how can I get rid of this versus how can I give this my whole self to just feel. And that usually creates a real sense of release, relief, openness, and a feeling again like you're with yourself, not like it's this one part of me versus this other part of me. Because that contention, that is so much of the burden that we're carrying around day to day. And the tension between how we want to be and how we actually feel is preventing us from just feeling lighter. You can't clear up all your sadness in one session, especially if you identify as having depression. It's like there's layers and layers and layers of sadness that for myself, I know when I was feeling depressed, I'd been accumulating for years. And now when I experience sadness, it's a momentary wind, like breeze that I feel, and it's cold and it hurts, but I know that it's moving through me and then it dissipates once I've given it the right amount of space. Um, but when you're in that place where you've been resisting it for a long time, it can feel like this is me. This is part of me. I'm never going to get through this. But keep showing up patiently and with compassion for yourself. Like embracing yourself is like second to second, minute to minute. It's not like, well, I gave myself a hug and it didn't work. So, F it.
It's allowing yourself to feel the feelings too, right? Because so many of us stuff things down and we don't realize they didn't go somewhere. They're still
Yeah.
there and they
Yeah.
can compound one on the other. And then maybe you're really angry about something that you didn't address. And that
Yeah.
could come out like depression. So many things could
Yeah.
come out. And so it's really just learning to embrace every side of ourselves, like you said, to embrace emotions, not necessarily judge your emotions as good or bad, right? Like if we say, oh, like maybe you were raised in a family where you're not allowed to show anger or
Yep.
sadness, you have to be happy all the time.
Yep.
So I think it's just embracing emotions, um, and then dealing with your emotions, like not just shoving them down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. One other thing that you can, sometimes it helps to like try on a hypothetical situation. Like, what's something that you are craving? What kind of love are you craving to receive from your partner, for example? Okay.
Supportive,
Yeah. Yeah.
cheer you on in your corner, love.
Yeah. So, whatever your answer is to that question, it's like, all right, how am I showing up to do that for myself?
I love that. Yeah, right. Because we can't always get what we're expecting from others. And sometimes, you may have somebody like I had in my life that I was continually looking for validation.
Hmm.
And I realized one day, wait, I'm never going to get that from that person. So why don't I just give it to myself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, like, whatever, if you're asking yourself that question right now and you have a bunch of obstacles coming up, reasons why, fears, all the stuff of like what's in between you giving yourself that love you acknowledge you want, that's where you start. That's where you start the, oh boy, I'm sitting with this, I'm embracing this, I'm working towards it.
Now, how do you even figure out what you want? Let's say you've been going along life just doing the do of what you think you're supposed to want or you
Yeah.
should want. How do you even figure out what you actually want?
Yeah. Again, as I said before, like we can kind of look at the darker side of things, our shadow self, in a way that that peeks out as clues to what we really want, but we're not willing to acknowledge. Like, what are the things that we notice we're jealous of that our friends have or someone on TV is doing, whatever it is, or if it's like the kind of love we want to receive. You think about like, what am I frustrated that this friend isn't doing for me? What am I frustrated that my partner isn't doing for me? So looking to our anger, looking to our resentment, looking to our envy as arrows pointing us towards the things that we really want but aren't willing to acknowledge that we want in a positive emotional tone. They're great teachers, those emotions.
I love that. I love that. So, how do we let's say we figured out what we want. How do we set the goal and stick to it? Because I think you're
Yeah.
going to get fear, you're going to get anxiety. Um, they're going to all come up
Yeah.
if it's a goal like that you have set. Uh, so how do we just set this goal and stick to it, even if we do have the fear and anxiety?
Yeah. So step one, just like you said, acknowledge, hey, there's going to be fear here. There's going to be self-doubt here. There's going to be anxiety here. Viewing that as almost a continued push forward towards it. Because if you didn't have those things, it would mean you didn't actually care about the thing that you're striving towards. So see that as a good sign. I care. This is probably the right goal for me if it's really evoking that fear. Second, really stay connected to and have a clear answer to the question of why am I doing this? Like at a deep level, what is this achieving for me? What is my motivation? Because if your goal is I want to lose 10 pounds and your motivation is, well, I want to be more attractive, or I think I'm not good enough as I am, that probably is going to drift away from you when you're faced with like the tough choices of what it actually means to try to lose weight. I've found it more successful when I penetrate down to like, I want to feel good in my body. I want to take care of myself the way that I deserve. Why? Because I am a human being that wants to enjoy my life, and that's what I would want for someone else. And like, again, like I was saying earlier about the desires, like drill down until you have something that really connects to a felt experience, that connects to an emotion, versus a self-criticism. Because let's say your goal is to lose 10 pounds and you're starting down that path, and your reason is kind of, well, I'm going to hate myself if I don't lose this weight. I don't like the way that I look. Okay, you start to eat right, you're making tough choices, you're going to the gym, you're doing those things, then you start to look better. Then the motivation to keep taking care of yourself kind of evaporates, because you've linked your progress to your self-hatred.
Boy, that was an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you link your success to, I want to feel good in my body, I want to feel alive.
Yeah. I want to enjoy
That's
my
gonna,
life.
yeah. As you invest in that goal and you reap the benefits, that's going to compound on itself. That's going to keep coming more to life. Yeah.
So how do we overcome like these negative thoughts and these behavior patterns that, I mean, I guess one way would be recognizing it, like you just called it out, like for people, I'm sure that was eye-opening for a lot of listeners. Like recognizing that we're chasing maybe, we're not like the correct feeling like would be, I want to feel good in my body. Like that would, I don't know if correct is the right word, but
right.
I want to feel good in my body. I want to feel good in my clothes. I want to feel healthy. I want to have energy so I can live my life. So like, would we just expand on this thinking? Because I think when you are stuck kind of in a negative pattern, it appears everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever you have going on the inside is going to get reflected all over the place on the outside. So, so you can either affect change by changing the external situation, or you can affect change by affecting the internal situation. For some people, one is easier. For some people, the other is easier. But again, it becomes this either a positive or a negative feedback loop, right? Like whatever the input is, it's going to keep compounding on that. And if you're staying in that vibration of self-hatred, which, trust me, I did for most of my life, that's what's going to keep coming. And it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of patience to keep showing up to yourself with honesty and an innocence, like a willingness to believe. And once you start seeing the positive effects of that shift, then it's easier to believe it because you can see it, it's tangible, and then you can build on it. But it's like when it's the smallest and when it's unknown, that's when it's the hardest, because even bad, negative, thoughts, emotions, whatever it is, like it's hard to let go of what's familiar. And eventually, if you put in lots of
Oh,
positive
yeah.
inputs,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, because we
then
think
the
it's
positive will come
protecting us
familiar.
in some way.
Right. Right. And like we have to understand that that is a deeply worn in evolutionary pattern in us. Like that is there to help us survive, even though it seems like that is what is screwing me every day, day in and day out. But it's in there for a reason. It's the system we've got to work with. And if you know it, you can overcome it.
What's some good homework for people today to dive into kind of what we've talked about in a very artsy, therapeutic way? Like, what could they do at home, like sort of as a project to kind of discover their emotions and their desires?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to be the most honest with yourself you've ever been. Give yourself permission to listen to the smallest voices inside of you that you've ever dared to try to hear. And then take out a piece of paper, journal, draw, whatever feels comfortable to you as a mode of self expression, and see what comes out of that. And then really look at that. Feel that what is on that paper is a part of you that you've taken, extracted out for study. And you can decide, is this something that I want to grow? Or is this something that I might be ready to let go of? Or is this something that has been holding me back and choking out life or desire or, the things I really want out of my life? This way of thinking, this conviction about myself. I would really say put pen to paper in whatever way has the least amount of resistance for you. So you can just look at something objective outside of yourself as an artifact of this is who I am right now. And then you get to be the person that makes a choice about how that continues, about where you go from there.
Love it. So, so good today. This has been really good. I think people's wheels are definitely turning, and I really want to hear from you guys what you did with the homework exercise and how it turned out, and what you let go of today, or what you decided you wanted to grow.
Yeah.
This was really good. I've really enjoyed myself today talking about and pondering things with art, our negative thought patterns, just like embracing ourselves as a whole, not throwing any pieces away. So, so good.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a delight.
Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. And as always, keep on keeping on. And don't forget to do the homework and DM me on Instagram and let me know what came up for you. Bye,
Yeah, I would love
everyone.
to see it too. Bye.
Yeah.